academic, social, emotional, and career support. So they graduate prepared for whatever your goal is. I'd like to introduce my colleague and friend, Amy Villa Senor.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Amy Villa Senor, and I'm the PUC Alumni Program Coordinator. So I work with Nicole to ensure that our high school students graduate successfully and we have a good path in place for them for all of their future endeavors.
Thank you, Amy. And just so everyone is aware, virtual housekeeping, everyone that comes in, we've got you muted. We just ask you to remain muted until you're called to speak. I just go over these formalities, even though I feel like at this point, everybody's pretty much a Zoom expert, but you can ask questions and we welcome questions. Put it in the chat. Amy's gonna be mining the chat for us and then interject as needed or save it for the Q&A at the end. And then students, when we open it up, we ask you, you're welcome to come off mute then and then talk to the presenters directly. This is all put together for you. Towards the end of the presentation, we're going to have a post-meeting feedback and attendance survey. That's an opportunity for students for you to share your voice. If you have any questions that you want follow-up items on, and also I was provided some resources that I can, from our presenters that I can share with you through that. Also, I take some notes throughout the presentation so that you don't have to sit and write notes feverishly. I'll get that for you and send it to you so you can just sit back, relax, enjoy, and ask questions. When it comes to our panel, we're really, really lucky today. We have Mr. Chris Hand, Corporate Counsel for Save Mart Supermarkets, Ms. Emily Schwartz, Community Outreach Specialist for the FBI, and Ms. Jimena Vasquez, Directing Attorney at LA Center for Law and Justice. I just want to, like I do each week, I always point out for those of you that return, we have an amazing panel that they too worked all day, have families, have lives, and still made time and a commitment for you. So we're so thankful to you, panel, for giving your time to PUC school students and sharing your advice and expertise. So can't thank you enough for being here today at the 5 o'clock hour. Students, before we jump into our panel, this is why we have these presentations. If you're in 6th grade, if you're in 12th grade, whatever grade you're in, if you're a PUC alumni, figuring out I'm in college and I'm not sure if I want to go to law school or in the FBI, or I'm just here to learn a little bit more, this is put together to expand your knowledge. It is very rare that you get this career knowledge from experts in the field. A lot of time you ask a counselor, you go to the career center, you go to the school counselor or a teacher and they're telling you about a field, but we have them here today. So please gain their real world insight, ask them questions. And we want to make sure that you're empowered to make informed decisions so that you can kind of get some of those things checked off of this is for me, or you know what, I'm glad I enjoyed this, but I'm going to look at a different avenue. So it's all for you to make informed decisions. I just wanted to share this from the Occupational Outlook Handbook, which is put together by the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics. Employment in legal occupations is projected to grow 5% from 2019 to 2029, faster than the average for all occupations, and will result in about 67,000 new jobs, which I think is very promising. So this is just a sliver of the legal careers, but I just wanted you to know, if you are here and wondering if there will be jobs in the future, I think you're in a good place. With that being said, enough hearing from me, let's hear from our experts, okay? So I'm just going to go down the list here and then we could switch it up. But if we could please start with Mr. Han, if you would maybe just share, when it comes to high school to where you are today, maybe share a couple key experiences as to how you figured out what you wanted to be when you grew up.
Yeah, so I guess PUC has a special place for me because I've actually taught at Triumph, so I'm an instructor at Los Angeles Mission College, and I remember teaching at Triumph maybe about 2 years ago. And so I've really been passionate about, what PUC is doing and the opportunities that are available to you guys to really take full advantage of your education and use it as a platform to really propel yourself forward. And so for me, growing up in high school, I struggled a little bit. I actually went to community college at Mission College in Sylmar, that I'm sure some of you are familiar with. And really a guiding principle for me, because I didn't always know or think that I could be an attorney, was just trying to be very good at what I was doing. So whether I was studying business or whether I was studying math or sciences, just really to dive in and try to develop a mastery and really an expertise of what I'm doing, served me well. Because the reality about the legal profession and also going to law school is there's a lot of different pathways to be able to get to being an attorney. And even as an attorney, there's a lot of different paths that you can take from there. So one of the important skills becomes being able to learn something, immerse yourself in that field or in that topic, and learn it quickly and be able to be fluent in it. So as I would say, as you embark into, your college career, it's really important that no matter what your class you're taking, it could be geology, it could be English, it could be math, really just to try to do it well, to try to develop that skill of picking things up quickly, being able to learn things quickly, because you're going to find that as a lawyer, a lot of what you do is thinking on the spot, thinking about new situations that you haven't encountered before, or maybe even covering fields that you're not familiar with. And so it always helps to be able to make sure that you train that mind of yours to be able to adjust and adapt according to each situation and each opportunity. And surely enough, for me, I was fortunate enough to be able to go to community college, fully use those opportunities and continue moving forward from there. So I actually went to law school at the University of Virginia, which is on the East Coast. And, I've been practicing as an attorney for the past 10 years, and it's been a very rewarding and very fun career. So I'm excited to talk to you all further about, the legal profession, and certainly glad to be here.
Thank you so much. Next, Ms. Schwartz.
Hi, everyone. So essentially, I also went to community college as well after high school. Couldn't really afford 4-year right off the bat. So I went to a local community college out in Riverside. I studied social and behavioral sciences, which is the official term of my AA, but administration of justice was my primary focus. So took tons of administration of justice classes. Since I was a teenager, I wanted to join the FBI. Didn't know exactly what I want to be doing. I didn't know I wanted to try to chase down serial killers for a living. So I went to Cal State LA to study psychology, talked to a special agent. I was actually lucky enough that my brother's football team's father worked on this, like the local law enforcement who knew a special agent from a case that they had worked. And so I was lucky enough to actually talk to the behavioral analysis liaison, who is stationed out at Los Angeles, and then is kind of like the liaison between the BAU over in Quantico, Virginia. So I was able to talk to him about what it would take for me to chase down serial killers for a living. Found out you have to be a special agent. It takes a lot of time and a lot of dedication. You have to fulfill all the requirements to be a supervisory special agent before you can actually even get close to profiling people. And you have to move to Virginia and live in Virginia. So finding that out, that dream was squashed, as I do not wish to leave Southern California. So definitely changed that, but I did know I still wanted to work for the FBI and figured, well, I'll go there and see what opportunities are there. There's a lot you don't know until you're actually in the organization. There's just so many that there just isn't time to talk about all of them. So just getting there is enough to be able to kind of see what you want to do. So mine's a whole story of, even though you have it planned out, life changes that for you. And even though your goals are one thing, they can definitely change, but kind of rolling with it works really well. I had no idea how I was going to apply to the FBI. This is something I didn't even realize until after the fact. I was lucky enough that FBI recruiters came to my college and did a presentation. And then they did interviews right afterwards. And so those interviews ended in a conditional job offer. So provided that I fulfilled all the requirements, then I could get permanent employment with the FBI. Of course, that was an 18-month background. So there was about 18 months after graduation that I was kind of, not really sure what I was going to be doing, because I was waiting on orders to go to Quantico, but also still needed to work and find a job. So I got a temporary job at the county office. And so did that for a while until I got my orders. And so I was lucky enough to go in 2016 to go to training. I was entry-level position, so I just assisted squads in an administrative capacity. But I definitely tried to talk to other people that did different jobs. So I talked to intelligence analysts and special agents, all different people, staff operations specialists, and talked to them about what they do, kind of network with them to see what I would want to do as like a career in the FBI. Then I went to secretary for a hot minute, and then I got the promotion to community outreach specialist. So my job is to conduct outreach to communities. In my case, it's specifically K through 12 youth. So I basically just kind of tell the communities about the FBI, what we do, what our role is as a federal agency. And so that's currently what my career is. I don't know if that's going to be like my retired career, but I'm just kind of enjoying the ride as it is, because I learned real fast that having a plan it's only going to get you so far, because life loves to change that up for you. So definitely just kind of trust your system and how you want to get through. And if you want to get there, it's possible. You just work hard enough and you find the right people to talk to, then you can be anything you want to be, honestly.
Thank you so much. And last but not least.
Great, thanks for having me. So I think knew from a young age that I wanted to probably be an attorney. But I think when I graduated high school, I wasn't 100% certain, especially when I went to a 4-year college. I went to UC Berkeley, and I couldn't decide if I wanted to follow like a legal path or a medical path. I was thinking maybe I could go into healthcare. But in my second year at school, I took a class that required you to do some community service. And so it was in that class that I volunteered at a legal clinic, and I was volunteering doing childcare. So it wasn't even something legal, but because they found out that I spoke Spanish, they immediately sent me to go work with attorneys translating declarations for clients. So these are their statements that they write when they file documents. And so I fell in love with the legal career after doing that as a college student, translating these really important stories for attorneys. And I found out more about becoming an attorney and met with all sorts of different lawyers from that organization. And so I ended up applying to law school, getting a recommendation from one of the attorneys who I worked with, and applied to do public interest work because it was working for a nonprofit. And so I went to NYU, New York University School of Law, and they paid for my entire legal career, which can be pretty expensive law school. So I was able to graduate without loans. And so I continue to work in the nonprofit field, currently as a directing attorney supervising family law and immigration law services.
Awesome. I love hearing everybody's different story. And I think students, I want you to realize when you hear all these different stories is, yeah, we're trying to help you create a plan. But I think one thing you want to recognize and applaud yourselves on is there's been no bigger pivot than this year of people trying to adjust and move. And please note that your skills that you developed this year with having to make that change of going to school in person to online, you guys are warriors and should be proud of yourselves and take those skills and pat yourself on the back, knowing that no matter what's thrown at you, you roll with it and you try and make it work. So sometimes like Ms. Vasquez said, she knew since she was a kid that she wanted to do that, but maybe some other people kind of pivoted around. I know I did, but thank you so much for sharing your stories. I think that's really important point for all of you students to realize. Where you start and where you end up can look very different than your plan, or it could be exactly on the nose. Whatever it is, though, you roll with it and make it happen. I also want to just point out some people just go straight to 4-year, and some people do the community college route. There's no wrong pathway. So seniors are getting your letters of admissions and financial aid right now. And some people are disappointed because the original plan isn't going to work out with the financial aid, or you didn't get into the school. That's not your story. Your story is the end goal. And you could get there in many ways. So thank you all for sharing that important insight on how you got to where you are. When it comes to real world experience, this is also like huge in the reality of students. You would please paint a picture of what your day looks like. And many of you are painting a picture of what it looks like now, and you have years under your belt. Please also share, when you're at the entry level, what someone might expect compared to being in the position of many years of experience. And I might just go, I might go backwards this time, just in order to mix it up and get crazy. So if you would please start, Jimena.
Sure. So I don't know if there's a typical day in my office. I think of it more as like a typical week. So that might be more helpful. So I do direct legal services work, which means I deal directly with clients, and I'm go to court a lot. We are a highly litigious organization, so we like to go to court. So typically in a week, we will have a hearing. We meet with new clients at least twice a week. So that's where we do consultations with clients and find out what their legal needs are, and then provide some assistance and see how much more we can help them with their legal matter. And then the rest of the week is usually meetings with other attorneys, trying to strategize on cases. Also, following up with clients and doing the legal work. And so that's typically, I think, what a week looks like. If someone's starting off in the legal field, they probably won't do as many hearings. I think it's probably more of the entry level, like drafting documents. But if you decide to go into the nonprofit sector, which is what I would encourage all of you to do, you usually will get more experience right from the start. I think if you go into a traditional firm, usually the entry level will not be doing much court work and won't be doing that litigation and talking in front of a judge.
Thank you. And when you talk about your work, is it a lot of reading and writing and research? Like what does it actually look like in terms of the day-to-day?
Yeah, so it is a lot of drafting documents, a lot of writing. I've been doing it for a long time, so it's not a lot of research, but I think it could be a lot of research when you are probably entry level, because you're getting to know your field and getting to know what are the laws, what are the cases that support your position. So it would probably be more research at the entry level.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to jump here to Chris, please, since we got the back lawyers just hearing differences in different fields.
Thanks, Nicole. And I just want to say I have a lot of respect for what Ms. Vasquez and what Ms. Schwartz do on a daily basis. Ms. Vasquez basically helps communities get access to very needed services, much in the same way that doctors provide needed medical care. There's a lot of people in the community that need access to legal services that would not have them, but for folks like Ms. Vasquez who provide those services. And of course, Ms. Schwartz, the work that the FBI does, we all know, is important to our national security and our overall safety. And so I really do have a lot of appreciation for what they do. What I do might be less exciting in comparison, but basically I work for a grocery chain that has about 200 or so stores here in California, about 16,000 employees throughout those stores. And a lot of my job is handling the issues that come up with our workforce. They may be issues with, investigating, disputes, dealing with unions, dealing with employee matters. There's been, as some of you may be aware, a lot of changes due to COVID. And of course, a lot of legislation that comes from the state legislature and also the federal legislature about how much workers get paid and how they have access to benefits during this COVID period and otherwise. And so my job as an in-house attorney becomes making sure that we as an organization comply with all of those rules and regulations, and also that we try to go a step above if it's possible as well. So my daily responsibilities involve, checking to see what may have changed about the law, what's going on internally, working with HR or other departments to make sure that the organization is functioning in the best way that it can. So, oh, and a junior role. So generally the track of going in-house is, you would work at a law firm first, and you would sort of get trained in a particular area and then move from there to more of an in-house position. The role of a junior attorney generally involves a lot of shadowing a more senior attorney, sort of seeing what they do and supporting them and hopefully making them look good in their job. So that becomes a very important skill.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. And Emily, please.
Thank you. So since the FBI has a lot of careers, and I know you guys probably have heard of special agent before, and intelligence analyst possibly, but we do hire like mechanics, and we have our own IT specialists, we have nurses that work on staff, counselors, you name it, we probably have somebody that does that, except for animal sciences, probably is the only one, and maybe culinary arts. We don't have private chefs or anything like that. So we all kind of do different things, and each day looks different depending on your job, and even like from job to job is even the same like category can be very different. A lot of office work, we do a lot of writing, and we have to do presentations often. So my job is mainly presentations. So that's whether developing them or presenting them. Other individuals will have to give briefings. So essentially they will have to brief executive management or maybe external executive management on what is going on in their investigation, what process is happening, what the next steps are in that. So they will need to have like certain materials provided, and then they have to give that briefing to a room full of very important people. So definitely speaking skills are really important just in general. You're gonna have to communicate in various ways. So whether that's written or orally, you're gonna have to communicate with individuals on a regular basis. And that's kind of pretty much baseline for everyone. Intelligence analysts, staff operations specialists gets to do the fun job of database checks. So they get to kind of research people's backgrounds, looking for evidence of criminal wrongdoing, and then providing reports on, here's the evidence, this is why we think this person is doing criminal activity, here's the proof of that, this is what I recommend should be the next steps in your investigation. And then they can also be involved in the investigation as well, possibly going out on searches or being involved in the interview process. So we don't call them interrogations, but they're interviews. So we interview suspects or subjects who might be, our target of our investigation. So oftentimes intelligence analysts can be right alongside special agents because they work right next to them throughout the entire investigation. Special agents will also get to go on surveillance. So they will kind of do almost like a stakeout in a sense, where they're basically following and watching someone just to try to get additional information and evidence of whichever kind of investigation that they are conducting at that time. So a lot of that kind of overlaps a little bit in terms of like the writing and reading, critical thinking. I think Chris mentioned it before, just being able to analytically think and critically think, and then also to present your ideas and then back them up with evidence and proof of what you're trying to assert or believe is true. So a lot of that is kind of just across the board you kind of need in general. So kind of that's where like the college education kind of comes in. So if, in general, most jobs you do need to have a bachelor's degree. So I definitely highly recommend going to college. There's a couple you don't necessarily have to have a college degree. It helps though in your promotionability though. So you're more likely to get promoted in that sense. Special agents do require a 4-year degree. And that's just in general, just to kind of get that kind of well-rounded individual, because you're learning all those basic skills that can be built upon in the FBI. So you don't necessarily have to have a criminal justice degree. You can, if that's something you love to pursue, but you can study anything and still become an FBI employee.
Thank you so much. Yes, and you see I have a little visitor who knows Ms. Jimena, so they're very excited to see her on the screen. But yes, I want to bring points out when Mr. Han, when Chris, when you spoke, you talked about in-house counsel. And I don't know if students realize pretty much any professional organization has lawyers on hand. So, I don't know if I would have thought as a kid that I could be a lawyer and work for a supermarket chain or work for the NFL or work for pretty much name an organization. I mean, PUC Schools has in-house counsel. So it's really, no matter what the business is, people want to make sure they're compliant and they're dealing within the law. And I know my husband works in finance and he deals with lawyers all the time in terms of that. So students, when you think of a way to get into an organization, know that law can look as your avenue, or even, you talked about FBI. I have a niece who wants to do nursing in the FBI, which when she shared that with me, that was an avenue I didn't even really think about, because I always think of like the movies I saw, that's my frame of the FBI. So students know that there's just so many possibilities, and it's so exciting to hear all of these avenues and to notice the overlap. I mean, students, do any of you hear any overlaps in terms of skills that you would need for any of these occupations in the legal career? Can anybody point any skills that they noted that go across the board, whether it be FBI or legal? I don't know if we have a shy audience today or not, but I know one thing that spoke to me, and it really is across any avenue, is being able to present your ideas and back it with research or data to make sure like that's just, and clear communication skills. That's, I don't care what you're going to go into, if you are able to communicate clearly and concisely, you are going to have a leg up on many of the other things that can be taught. So thank you all for sharing that piece. And students, don't be shy. I know you had a long day of school, but feel free to chime in. It makes it more fun when we have the back and forth conversation. So with real world experience, thank you guys for sharing that.
Nicole, if I could just chime in real fast.
Please.
So any students, if you haven't opened up the chat box, just send the questions to me, Amy Villa Senor. I will be fielding questions as they come in. So if you send in a question for a presenter now, it'll be top of the list when the Q&A section starts opening up. So yeah, so please open up the chat box and start sending your questions my way, and I'll start putting them together so we're prepared for Q&A.
Excellent. When I always have students here, like, okay, so just like college, it's hard to get in, competitive, and how do I stand out? If I'm an admissions person and I get a stack of about 1,000 applications, why are they going to want to read mine? I always try and make that comparison to getting a job. So now you got your college degree, or you've got your experience in the field. How are you going to maybe get a leg up for people to notice you in law or in the FBI? What advice might you have? And I may start with you, Emily, this time. Advice for students interested in the FBI.
I'm sorry, I should have mentioned this earlier and I so stupidly forgot, but we do actually have in-house counsel as well. We have lawyers that do work for us. We have paralegals and lawyers as well. So we have our own little legal department. So just FYI, can't believe I didn't even list that as the jobs that we have. So in terms of advice, the one thing that goes really far in terms of within the Bureau, while we are a large organization, it is like a small world where we're at. So reputation is huge. And if you have a bad reputation, people will talk. So supervisors will talk to other supervisors, employees will talk to other employees, and will kind of avoid you if you are known as not the greatest employee on the planet. So cultivating a really good reputation by word of mouth is really important. And in order to do that is to essentially give 100% regardless of what your job is. So if you're scanning documents, then you do 100%. If you're told to file things, then you're doing that 100%. You're staying organized, you're doing, I know there's not you can go above and beyond in terms of filing, but you're doing it with a smile, you're happy to do it. If someone asks you to do something, even if it's not in your job description, do it anyway. I always say yes, no matter what I'm asked to do, because it's all about fueling that mission. So the mission is to basically protect the American people, uphold the Constitution. So if whatever they're asking you to do fulfills that, or helps further the investigation, or helps them get their job done, then that's what's important, not whether it's in your job description or not. And oftentimes a lot of people have come across that have gotten negative reputations will kind of be like, no, that's not my job, because it's either beneath them or they just don't want to do it because it's not exciting or fun or interesting. But some of that, there's a lot that has to go into, and I'm sure even in the legal professions, that isn't necessarily the funnest and coolest thing ever to do, but it's necessary and it's important. And still being, you know, somewhat excitable or pretending to be, to do even the most boring work really goes a long way, because a lot of people remember you and then they will ask you to do more. So then you get to do more interesting things. They'll know that you're a person who can get things done and is willing to do anything to help out and further that mission. So then you'll be asked to do the fun and exciting things because they know they can rely on you and that you're a good hard worker. Having patience, especially with the FBI, is huge. Like I said, my background was 18 months. That whole time I had no idea if I passed or not, if I was going to have a job, when I was going to have a job. And unfortunately, that is kind of the case even within the Bureau. Things move incredibly slowly, unfortunately. So we'll be told one thing and 6 months later, that thing has still not happened. So you have to be very patient, and what this last year has definitely taught us is being adaptable and flexible. It'll just make your life so much easier, because you cannot predict and you can't really control what goes on around you, but you can control how you react. So whether you react in a good, organized manner, in a professional manner, people will remember that versus the person that throws a fit because things aren't going the way you want them to. So it's really important to kind of maintain that level of professionalism, as well as just kind of in general being a genial person and, you know, willing to do the job regardless of what that job looks like. I believe it was Muhammad Ali, and I'm going to paraphrase this, but said he was always going to be great. So even if he was a garbage worker, he was going to be the world's greatest garbage man. So that was his goal. He was going to be great at anything he did. And I think Chris had mentioned this earlier, that just to be great in whatever it is you're doing. So no matter what you're doing, and no matter what other people think in terms of a hierarchy of jobs or anything like that, be the greatest in whatever it is you're doing. Because people will remember that. They'll remember that you take pride in your work, even if that work isn't exciting or fun or awesome, but that you actually do the job and you do it well. So that's my main advice.
It's great advice. Thank you so much. And I think, you know, giving 100% and integrity, like people knowing that they can count on you and trust you, because sometimes when we say reputation, what that looks like in the workforce compared to reputation in a middle school, high school sense is very different. So I appreciate you really articulating reputation is knowing you can be counted on. They can count on you if needed, and that you are adaptable and come to work smiling, like positive the majority of time. We don't have to be fake and like walk around with a smile on your face, but that you're truly happy to be a part of the team. I think those are really soft skills that we sometimes talk with students about, and they don't realize the power of it. So thank you for pointing some of those things out.
Nicole, I have one question for Emily regarding the FBI. Is it important when you're applying to the FBI in any position that you have a squeaky clean background? Is there room for experimentation in college? I know some people sometimes are starting, like, try out some things. Is that going to harm their prospects in the future?
So I cannot officially endorse any sort of experimentation in any sort of illegal manner or questionable manner. So I will say, yes, a squeaky clean background is needed. However, I will say there are wiggle room there. So essentially you can't have used marijuana within 3 years. So you could have used it, you just have to wait 3 years from the last time you used it in order to apply for employment. So again, not endorsing, but it is possible for you to have experimented in college and still pursue an FBI career. Just be honest about it. Don't hide. Don't pretend that it never happened. Just be honest and make sure you wait that requisite 3-year period. This does include within the state of California. So even though it is legal here, it is not legal at the federal level. So federal employees and those seeking federal employment are not authorized to utilize marijuana in any form. This includes even like CBD products. So kind of keep that in mind. Anything derived from marijuana falls under that category of you can't use it. With regards to harder drugs, if you choose to do harder drugs, you just have to wait 10 years. So there is a way you can still experiment in college. The only thing that I would say would be a complete disqualifier would be a felony. So I would definitely don't recommend experimenting with any sort of criminal record if you can avoid it. Definitely would not recommend that at all, because that'll be really hard for you. But it is easier to have a squeaky clean background because it's an intense process. And so as long as you're okay with being honest about what you actually have done in the past, then there is ways in which you can still have, I guess, the full college career or experience in that sense, without risking your employability.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. How about we go with Chris? If you please share some advice.
Thanks, Nicole. Yeah, I'll just say two things. One, I think someone told me in the past that we oftentimes overestimate what we can do in 1 year and maybe underestimate what we can accomplish in 5 years. And I guess that stuck with me because, a lot of times it's easy to sort of get frustrated when something's not working out, or, maybe your academic or professional career isn't projecting or isn't going linearly like you would have expected. But it's important to be persistent no matter what you do. And so I think that oftentimes what you'll see is the folks who really succeed professionally and personally are persistent, and they have a long-term perspective when they approach things. So I think that was very important for me, growing up, and even to this day, it's something that's important to keep in mind. The second thing that I'll say is that doing good in school and getting a top-notch education certainly goes a long way, but how you succeed over your career is in large part going to be a factor of how you deal with other people, and your ability also to take in different viewpoints, maybe of people that are different from you or have different backgrounds or different experiences, and really internalize the things that are helpful about what they might be able to give you in terms of feedback or other things, and to learn no matter what stage that you're in. You could be a freshman in college, you could be a law student, you could be a new lawyer or a partner at a law firm. But I think no matter what role you're in and what stage you're in, I think it's important to have an attitude of humility, and also to be teachable and to learn no matter what phase or however high or low you might be in your overall career. So that's what I would say.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that really important advice. Ms. Vasquez.
Sure. And I think I would agree with what both Emily and Chris said. And I would just add that I think the law field is one where networking is really important. So meeting new people, constantly being open to meeting new people and taking on different viewpoints. It'll help with, finding the place where you want to work. And also with if you want to open up your own, small legal firm, you need to meet with clients and get word out that you're available. So I think networking is really important. The other advice I think I would give would be to volunteer. So there's so many nonprofits who need assistance, who are always looking for people to come in and help out, whether it's with like shredding documents or, answering phone calls, that it will help you. I think if you get to know what the legal field is like, get to know what field you want to practice in, and it looks really good on a resume that you've been volunteering and helping out and trying to do something. So that would be my advice, is to meet people who are lawyers or to just talk to other people who are in the field, and look for opportunities to get involved.
Thank you. And that's some great advice. I mean, I believe we've had alumni come on past calls and say to presenters, I'm applying to a job, and they say experience is required. What do I do? And they said, well, what have you done volunteer-wise? Or what project have you done to help support others that was beyond just an assignment in school. So finding, Jimena, you talked about you were volunteering and helping kids and then got plucked out, and that's what kind of opened the door for you. And so we can't stress, and commitment number 3 for PUC schools is giving back to the community. And I know some students are like, oh, what do I have to do just so I can get it checked off, the box that I completed community service, when really you need to be looking at it as, what can I do to learn more about myself and network. I think that's valuable, really invaluable advice that you provided. Thank you. I have a question for Chris. Chris, you taught at, I think it was LCHS?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. That was a concurrent enrollment class, and what class was it?
If I remember correctly, it was either, it may have either been personal finance,
Okay.
or perhaps business law.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for sharing that, PUC students. And if you're not a PUC student and you go to any school in LA County, you can take free dual enrollment classes at any of the 9 Los Angeles Community College district schools. So if it's Santa Monica, if it's Mission, if it's Trade Tech, if it's any Valley, any of these schools. So you can get a taste of criminal justice, law, all these classes while you're in high school and earn college credit. And I think that's really important to get that experience now, because you'd be able to be a Mr. Hand's class or another professor's class that many times they have real world work experience, or even access to the university resources. Like Emily shared, there was someone giving a presentation on FBI at your college, and that's kind of what got your foot in the door of learning more and being able to apply. So, so many different opportunities that you need to think of, what's at my school, how do I take advantage of it? Because becoming a lawyer or going into the FBI in any of the avenues that you can take, you got to be able to market yourself. You got to be able to connect with people, and you got to get your foot in the door. So no one can do that for you. You have to do it yourself, but there's a lot of people that want to help you. So excellent. As we move forward, that was a lot of advice, students, to really take in and try to absorb with regards to what you could do to kind of stand out in the crowd. I open it up to Amy, if you would share some of the questions that are coming through the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll start a little easier. This is for either Jimena or Christopher. How long does it take to become a lawyer?
You want to
I
take
can
that,
take the easy
Jimena?
one. Yeah, I'll take
Yeah, go ahead.
So it's 4 years of college or a college degree, and then it's 3 years of law school. So a total of 7, yeah, at least.
Perfect, thank you. And then there is a question from students who they're wondering about the financial component. I think something that sounds alluring frequently about law is that, or even the FBI, is that you're gonna get paid a lot, you're gonna make bank. Maybe can either of you disclose, or any of you disclose maybe what a starting salary or starting financial compensation may look like in this industry?
Well, as a public employee, we do not make bank, unfortunately. We, get paid in other ways. We do get a salary, but obviously giving back to, protecting the communities and the nation is kind of in and of itself payment. Starting salary, I believe the entry level OST position is around $40,000 right now. And then a starting salary for a special agent right out of Quantico is around, I believe, $70,000-ish, maybe 80,000. But you can look that up on opm.gov. Our salaries are all public information. So just look up the GS levels and you can find that information. But I think it's around 70 to 80 for an agent, and then around 40,000 for entry level, like right out of college type job.
Great, thank you. Jimena, maybe could you speak to kind of entering entry level in the public interest field of law?
Sure. So unfortunately, we do not make bank either. Really, we do community service work. And so it's not for the money that folks work in the nonprofit. But our entry level attorneys make 65 starting and then up from there.
Great, thank you. And then Christopher, maybe in the law firm or corporate world?
Yeah, so in the private sector, there's a lot of variation. It's kind of, you know, there's two peaks. It's not really a bell-shaped curve, but you might have a lot of attorneys starting out at, you know, 75 to 80,000. And a lot of attorneys starting out at 190,000, depending on the type of placement that they get initially. And generally speaking, to get the higher end of the salary range, you would be working with a larger firm. So, you know, it really depends, you know, what type of firm and what type of law you do, that I think initially, as far as your starting salary.
Great, thank you. And students, something to keep in mind as well. It's important to consider what it takes to get there. So to become a lawyer, you have to do 3 years of law school. And so you have to calculate, you know, loans you had to take out or what you had to do to finance your way to that point as well. So that's something, you know, to take into consideration. Let's see. We have a student who's interested in becoming a medical lawyer. Do any of you have any advice on, or are any of you even aware on what it would take to maybe get to that point?
So a medical lawyer, like one who focuses on medical malpractice, or one who works for a hospital as in-house counsel, or maybe one who deals with a lot of medicine for injured employees? Because you know, all three would touch medicine in a way. So, but I guess just generally, you know, to be a medical lawyer, it would help. It's not necessary, but it certainly helps to have maybe a STEM undergraduate degree, and in the sense that you can read medical reporting a little bit easier, and you can understand it, so that if you're maybe, if a doctor is your client, or maybe a doctor is the person who you're relying on for their report, you can kind of speak their language, and you can understand some of the, maybe not everything, but some of the more technical parts of what you're reading.
Thank you so much. Ask the student if they have any clarification, and just pending response.
And please note that following this webinar, I'll be sending out some resources with the link to ONET, where you could look up the different occupations and find more of the job demand, as well as the salary outlook. So please know that will come after this email if you fill out the survey. Thank you. Amy.
Thank you. And we're still open to receiving questions, students, if there are any others that are popping up. We still have a few more here, but some of them are, yeah, Nicole?
I got some sent directly to me too. So,
oh, cool. Yeah, why don't you take a couple?
Someone just asked, what do you guys do to, like, when you're in school and university, since it's a long road of first off, like, your patience to get where you are, how did you keep from giving up?
I'm just a persistent person. I'm determined. I do not like to give up. I have to complete something, and if I can't figure it out, I will work so hard to try to make it work and figure it out. So I don't like, I mean, losing is not the right word, but I guess failing. I refuse to fail or give up on something. So just the sheer tenacity of completing that is just part of my nature and personality. So that's kind of what kept me going. And I also had a really good support system at home. So that was really helpful. They were, super supportive and helpful in terms of anything that I needed, and supportive of just my education in general. So that does help as well when you kind of get low. Having a support system you can turn to kind of help you and give you that pep talk and, kind of buck you up when you're kind of on the lower end in terms of any sort of stress you're going through. I would say is probably mostly what got me through all those years.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. How about Chris or Jimena?
I mean, I think I would say I would try to put it in perspective. I know 7 years sounds like a long time, but I think if you think about it, if you go straight through, you graduate when you're 24, and you could be working then for the next 50 years in your profession. So I think trying to put it in perspective really always helped me. I've now been practicing for about 17 years. And so, it goes by really quickly, is what I'll say.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say too is for some of you that maybe, you'll work first and maybe you'll get into a certain profession, and, law was always something that you aspired to, but maybe, circumstances didn't work out completely, ideal for you to jump into it right away. It's not necessarily something you have to give up on. My father-in-law, for example, became a lawyer when he was, 45 years old, and went to night classes part-time at a law school. And he was a paralegal for a lot of his life, and then a hearing rep. And then he was able to go to law school, and, it took the bar a few times, but, eventually passed. And again, I think, both Ms. Schwartz and Ms. Vasquez, to get to where they are, you need to be persistent, and you need to sort of really take a long-term approach to things. And, I'd like to emphasize too that regardless of your background or circumstance, I know it'll, for some of you, it'll be, quite a struggle in different regards. I mean, there might be hurdles, whether they're financial or, otherwise, that, you may encounter. It might not appear or seem fair in that regards, because maybe for others, they may have had, maybe less obstacles, but it's important to really have grit and be able to stick it out. And if you have a goal in mind, and maybe it takes you a little bit longer, that's okay. Because, ultimately you'll get there, so long as you're working diligently towards that goal.
Thank you so much. And I think, in speaking with students and speaking with family members who are seniors in 10th grade, when I say go to undergrad for 4 years, and then you go to grad school for another 2, 3, 4, depending on what their choice is, it sounds like an eternity for kids. But knowing that, I always say, when you get to the upper level college classes, when you get to the law school or the grad school of your choice, the stuff that you're learning is stuff you want to learn. It's not just the general stuff. Your first 2 years of college and community college, it's the general ed requirements where everybody has to take this class and everybody has to take that class. But the higher up you get, the more specified you are in your field. And it actually is like, man, everything I'm learning, I want to do or be. So, and I'm getting access to these professors and to these clubs and to these organizations. And it's kind of like lifting the veil on all of that stuff you want to be. So don't let the years scare you. And, Ms. Vasquez talked about going to NYU, one of the best schools in the country, for free. There are opportunities, and you do have to work hard for them. I'm sure they just didn't knock on your door and say, surprise, you had to work hard for it and prove your worth that I'm here, I'm a hard worker, and I'm going to finish what I start. So there, again, just like Mr. Han said, you got to kind of put aside maybe some of the obstacles or connect yourself, like Ms. Schwartz said, connect yourself with the helpers, the people that want you to succeed, which if you don't have that in your family, If you don't have that in your community, you find one. And you can find one. There's people that want you to succeed at the university level, at the college level, at your high school. You can always come back to your high school, and there's people that want to fight for you and support you. But you got to be able to show that you want to work for it, and then you're not scared to put in that energy and that hard blood, sweat, and tears. I just want to give a shout out to Amy Villa Senor. She just got accepted to LMU Law School, and she'll be starting in the fall. And that wasn't a decision I don't think you had from birth that you were going to grow up and be a lawyer, was it?
No, actually, I was really intimidated by law. I thought it was going to be, I was going to be on a stage the whole time. I'm like, courtrooms look really intimidating. And I think it took me working in nonprofit education with Nicole and seeing, what other people do at PUC schools for me to realize more of what I wanted. I needed space from school and kind of that you have to make all your life decisions right now. I needed to take a breather from all of that for a couple of years to realize what it is I actually wanted to do. I think life when you're 18, 19, 20 can feel really compressed, and that if you don't make a decision right away, you're going to, mess up your whole future. But I think something that's been helpful to me is that life is long and you have time to make decisions. And sometimes it's better to consider what you need financially and plan out more in the long term how you're going to accomplish some of those goals. So I think for me, that was something that was really helpful in coming to. I needed space. I just needed to, just exist in my job for a little bit. Usually when you're a student, everyone's always asking, what are you doing next? What's next? And you're 1 foot in what you're doing right now and 1 foot in the future. Sometimes it takes just being in the present for a little bit to realize what you want.
Excellent. We've got about a minute left. Is there one last question or anything?
I think one question I have is, once you get your law degree, can you practice law anywhere in the United States?
I'll take that.
Sure.
Yeah, so you have to be licensed in each jurisdiction, so in each state. And then also, even if you're licensed in a state, doesn't necessarily mean you can practice in sort of federal court. So you have the federal and state court systems, and so each area or each sort of system that you're practicing in may have requirements for you to be licensed or to be admitted. Now, of course, some states have what's called reciprocity, which means that if you get licensed in one state, another state might recognize that, and so you don't have to retake the bar exam in that state as well. But keep in mind too that as a lawyer, and a lot of people just look at the bar exam as sort of the hurdle. But there's actually two components. There's the bar exam, and then also there's moral character. So, you do want to also be aware of that other component as well with regards to moral character, because being an attorney, and because it's a regulated profession and you're, an officer of the court, you're expected to conduct yourself in a way that's truthful and generally sort of being a citizen in good standing. So just things to keep in mind.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Well, in terms of students, Ms. Senor, Amy just put up the survey, the feedback survey. I asked that you take a couple seconds. It's a short survey, and provide your feedback on today's webinar. And if you have any additional questions, please let me know. Ms. Schwartz shared 2 really valuable resources on careers in the FBI that I will send to all who have completed the survey. And again, just like all of you out there, these people have families, lives, jobs, all of that, and said, yes, sign me up. I'll speak with PUC students at 5 in the afternoon. Oh, I'm frozen. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Nicole.
Oh, you know what? I could see myself like slowing down. I think my connection's fouled up. But I just want to thank you, presenters, on behalf of PUC schools, giving your time, sharing your story and your expertise with our students. We're forever grateful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
All right, and students, complete that survey and I'll stay on if you have any questions, but y'all have a great night. Thank you so much.
Bye.
My connection is a little bit